This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Hi, and welcome back to Pokemon Ecology. Today, we're going to be looking at Trapinch, Vibrava, and Flygon. These Pokemon were really cool, and while I knew they would be going into it, I didn't expect them to be as cool as they are. There are a lot of really neat adaptations and features in this line, and I don't want to stall, so let's get right into it. As usual, we're starting with the head. Trapinch's head is so large that it flipping over causes it to get stuck somehow. This doesn't really make much sense, as it should make it easier to flip over. Turtles in real life use their heads as a point of contact to flip over, and Trapinch's body plan is somewhat similar. From what I've researched, the bites of their inspiration wouldn't actually hurt. Here though, it's pretty clear that they do. Considering Trapinch looks a little bit like a backwards antlion, its large head is probably more about immediate force than envenoming prey like real-life antlions. Many soldier ants in real life have larger heads and stronger mandibles, but otherwise I struggled to find a good relation between larger head and stronger bite. Because this is an insect, kind of, more on that later, its strength would come from hydraulic-like systems as opposed to the muscle connections on which vertebrates depend. I think its teeth may be the largest influence in their bite power. Trapinch obviously has some impressive teeth. It's able to crush boulders with its jaw's strength, and that's likely in no small part due to its chisel-shaped teeth. Whether it uses that to actually crush boulders, like this Pokedex entry claims, depends on whether you call Geodude a boulder or not. Golem's rocks are just a shell protecting a creature, and they're nutritious for crops, so maybe the creature inside a Geodude is actually edible. Vibrava eats much like many real-life insects do, including the antlion. It dissolves prey with digestive acid and consumes them. In real life, this is done by injecting the prey, but Vibrava seems to simply coat them. This makes sense in the Pokemon world, as many of their potential prey species are not insects, whereas in real life it's injected because the exoskeleton will hold the fluids. Flygon likely does the same, but it's not stated anywhere. Back to talking about head shapes with Vibrava and Flygon, these two Pokemon grow what I presume to be antennae. Considering that they're so long, it's likely that they're important. Antennae in normal insects can feel, sense temperature, hear, smell, and even detect wind. Do these Pokemon need to feel? Perhaps. They live in wide open sand areas, enclosed badlands, and rough rocky terrain. Do they need to sense temperature? Maybe. This could cue them into a cold cave where Pokemon may be hiding. Do they need to hear? Likely. The noises made by these Pokemon may also be used for attracting mates. Do they need to smell? Not particularly. The senses may be underdeveloped here due to emphasis on other senses. Do they need to detect wind? Absolutely. Flygon whips up desert winds for a number of reasons. Using their antennae to sense wind could help them make these sandstorms much quicker than otherwise, while facilitating flying through them. However, I think it's only doing a couple of these, namely hearing and wind detection in my opinion, as its specialized eyesight seems to be the main way it detects predators. The eyes here seem to be mockings of insect eyes. They look like compound eyes, but that's just the large lens over them. With my very limited understanding of lenses and light science, I think the domed shape of these lenses helps focus on objects that are closer, or maybe it draws light from all around onto a center point, that being their eye, to improve field of view. Or maybe it's simply a coating of tissue with sunglass-like specializations that I'll talk about in a moment. Considering their likely predator role though, the former two would make sense. They'll prowl the sands looking for prey, then they use their excellent focus to keep track as they whip up a sandstorm around it. Now, the sunglasses element I mentioned. Vibrava and Flygon have green and red lenses respectively. At first, this may seem like it's included just to look cool and match the color scheme. However, lens colors have different effects on light. Green lenses improve color contrast and accuracy while reducing harsh sunlight, without hampering low light vision. This means Vibrava would be able to pick out prey much better, and it could even hunt well in any crevices or caves in deserts. In Flygon's case, red lenses improve depth of field and provide comfort in much brighter environments, like snow or more relevant here, sand. Considering its focus on flight and flying across a sunny desert looking for prey, it makes obvious sense to have such colors for lenses. Trapinch's body is much like a turtle, as I mentioned earlier. In turtles, this keeps their defensive body low to the ground. Trapinch here looks like it has an exoskeleton, but more likely, this is to keep its tiny body well defended behind its monstrous head. Predators will have a much harder time striking at any undefended body parts. Also, it can fit in smaller holes. Less energy needs to be expended to bury its body, should it need to do so. Speaking of, its arms don't look like they're good for digging. However, it may just wiggle its head or body to dig pits, much like antlions in real life. However, their inspiration has a tiny structure on its abdomen to dig pits, while Trapinch's abdomen is round. Maybe it uses its mouth as a shovel like some fish. Vibrava and Flygon have very similar bodies, whose bodies are in turn very similar to dragonflies. These bodies are aerodynamic and relatively space efficient. The Flygon's legs are bulky. I think this may assist with landings and takeoffs, being similar to a kangaroo's shock-absorbing legs. Their tail is long like a kangaroo's too, but that's probably a coincidence. Each of the stages experiences some drastic transformations. Trapinch is entirely changed, and Vibrava turning into Flygon develops complex hands, one fewer set of wings, and a more advanced tail, it looks. While it's obvious that Trapinch must undergo some sort of metamorphosis here, I think that Vibrava does as well. Trapinch and Vibrava both appear to have chitin or an exoskeleton, and Flygon does not. Perhaps this is similar to a cicada's metamorphosis across both stages, but Flygon is quite the large organism to be crawling out of a Vibrava. Or maybe they simply grow into their 6-foot height over time. If you're a longtime viewer, you'll know that a big part of why this video excited me is coming up, except it isn't. Vibrava's wings aren't excellent for flight, and Flygon only has one pair of wings. I'm going to explain why I'm saddened here. My very first video covered Skarmory. Go watch it. It's one of my favorites. In that video, I talked about how Skarmory's many separate wing structures would grant it incredible flight ability, with one such reason citing real-life dragonflies. Real-life dragonflies have 2 sets of wings, which allow for incredible aerial maneuverability, making them one of the most efficient predators. Unfortunately, Vibrava has 2 wings, but is a poor flyer, and Flygon has 1 pair. Dragonflies are sadly not applicable here. Talking more specifically about their wings, Vibrava's wings are for creating sound, and they do not use them to fly great distances, so just for shorter bursts of mobility. They also have these strange caps over the base, which I am guessing protect the wings' attachment to the body. Flygon has similarly shaped wings, though are much larger, quite similar to a kite, likely to catch up wind and stir up sand so as to improve its ability to generate sandstorms when hunting. Additionally, their large size means that Flygon could build up speed by moving a great amount of wind at once. Moving on to their hands and feet, as mentioned earlier, Trapinch doesn't have great arms. These possibly graviportal, meaning heavy stepping, feet don't seem efficient for desert movement, where a lighter gait would allow for better movement on the sands. It may be intentional for them to sink in the sand, though I doubt they'd have trouble doing that, but it does look pretty easy in this clip. Vibrava's spindly arms and feet are most like insect legs or bird talons, specifically made to catch thinner surfaces. With how long these legs are, maybe it's for landing on cacti to safely attack prey. Flygon's back legs I've already talked about, but one quick note, it may use them to spring off like a kangaroo as well, giving a burst of speed to start flying right away. Its front legs, though, interest me. They have this clutching pose, but the angle of the fingers and the nails being dull makes these hands look like they're more for digging and manipulating rocks. It would make sense for them to bury their eggs or young, as their nymphs are proficient shovelers themselves, or maybe they use them to construct nests to keep their young safe. Vibrava's tail has 2 extra wing-like structures that likely serve the same purpose as the back wings of a plane do: horizontal stabilization, or pitch control, which controls the up and down angle when flying. Here, Vibrava would use it to move up and down proficiently. As it doesn't seem to move, this is perhaps only for this purpose. It may use this enhanced pitch control to take off or maneuver vertically away from predators. It may also be that these are how it generates sound, though Pokédex entries wouldn't specify wings so heavily if that were the case. Flygon shares the tail structures with Vibrava, but it grows a third here. This makes me think that, at least on Flygon, it uses this fan-shaped structure to kick up sand and maybe control airflow to form its sandstorms. Having such a long prehensile tail, I doubt Flygon uses it for flight control, though it may be able to make it rigid to catch wind. Normally, I don't focus too much on how a Pokemon differentiates from its inspiration, but here it's unavoidable. Insects are already rough in Pokemon. Some of them aren't even segmented. The bug type is not exclusively insects. Insects like Pokemon are not exclusively bug type, like the subject of this video, or Lurantis, and the limb counts are all over the place. Even mouth parts are wildly off. As a result, it's really hard to accurately pinpoint if Flygon is an insect or not, anatomically. Instead of guessing left and right, I'll be walking through what makes it not an insect. Insects in real life have a 3-segmented body, meaning that their bodies are structured with a head, thorax, and abdomen. Vibrava may be segmented like this, but Flygon has a clearly seamless transition from thorax to head. Insects are judged anatomically by their adult forms, so Vibrava's potential success here is overruled by Flygon's failure. Insects in real life all have 3 pairs of jointed legs. Trapinch and Vibrava can be ignored here, as I just said. Flygon only has 4 legs, it seems. Some insects in real life do have hidden legs, like the blue morpho, with 2 legs too small to see. Take that as you will. Some viewers may know that vertebrates' wings are, in fact, arms or hands. With invertebrates, this is not the case, and these wings are incredibly flimsy. This is hardly evidence, but I doubt there's a jointed limb within that wing. These restrictions, as well as the ones mentioned earlier, leave us with 3 evolution lines that may be classified as insects in real life: Lokix, Durant, and Yanmega. Maybe the insect body structure in the Pokemon world simply never adapted a 3rd set of legs. Anorith and Armaldo are stated to be the ancestor to all bug Pokemon, so maybe these 3 Pokemon diverged early, and all of the other bugs, Flygon included, came from this line of 2 sets of limbs. Additionally, maybe the many false bugs are a result of convergent evolution, where animals trend towards successful body types, making them look like other animals who'd done the same. There are tons of examples of this in real life, but one clear example is the razor-billed auk and penguins. They're pretty distantly related, but the auk's genealogy trended towards a penguin-like body plan. In the Pokemon world, non-insect creatures may have trended to an insect-like body plan, causing the resemblance with taxonomic rule violations. Unexpectedly, we see nesting behaviors in these Pokemon. In New Snap, Flygon and Trapinch are resting in a sandpit together. This is atypical of most insects, including their inspiration. But considering Trapinch are sometimes defenseless, this makes sense. A flipped Trapinch is vulnerable to attack from a Sandile, while a Flygon cooperatively hunts with Crocodile. It's not impossible that Flygon nests with Trapinch for protection, but hunts separately. But there's nothing we see other than them nesting together, so conclusions are sparse. Trapinch, Vibrava, and Flygon each have a very different hunting style, which is really interesting. Trapinch, of course, uses antlion sandpits for hunting. It digs massive holes in sand to catch prey in the loose soil. They step in, the sand slides under their feet, and they're dragged into Trapinch's waiting maw. The prey trying to escape not only causes them to fall into the sand quicker, but it also turns them away from the Trapinch, meaning Trapinch gets to attack their likely less defended backside. Vibrava vibrates its wings at a frequency that knocks out prey. This causes headaches in humans in the Pokemon world, so the frequency may be particular to prey species. I couldn't find any case of this in real life, but something somewhat similar is a behavior of some bee species that makes its rounds on the internet every so often. These bees vibrate on their predators to cook and suffocate them to death. I say this is somewhat similar because the bees narrowly avoid overheating themselves. The through line to my speculation is that Vibrava's body must be tuned in such a way that its prey does faint while Vibrava does not. Flygon hunts using sonorous noises from its wings to lure prey into their sandstorms and attack while the prey is weakened and deprived of its senses. Whether this is energy efficient or not depends greatly on whether their flight is energy intensive or not. An ecological interaction is flipped on its head here, within a life cycle, as Sandile that once hunted Trapinch are now Crocodile that are now assisting Flygon. The Crocodile uses the sandstorm created by Flygon to hide and attack prey, and the catch is split between the two. This cooperative hunting is actually something we see in real life. Famously, coyotes and badgers out west in America will team up to hunt subterranean animals. Coyotes have an excellent sense of smell and can pinpoint the locations of creatures like prairie dogs. The badger then comes over to dig up the prey item, and the two get a meal neither would have gotten otherwise. The question is, what prey is too big for either Crocodile or Flygon to get on its own, but easy enough to handle that the two teaming up can split it and each get a fulfilling meal? Here's a list of Pokemon that can be found at least twice alongside Trapinch. Undoubtedly, this Pokemon's hunting style changes with each life stage. With that in mind, I'll be addressing it quickly for each. Trapinch's jaws and sand pits are adaptations for Pokemon that would otherwise deflect or outrun a predator. Diglett, Drillbur, and Sandshrew may all be able to escape the sand pits, but even Sandshrew's defensive plates would likely be crushed by Trapinch's jaws. Dwebble, Geodude, and Klink may otherwise deter predators with their tough armor, making predation attempts energy inefficient, but Trapinch's jaws can crush boulders, so at least the first two can be consumed relatively easily. Axew, Gibble, and Sandile can fight back, but only if they're lucky enough to evade Trapinch's defensible face. Skorupi's poison and Howlucha's aerial drop attacks may be adapted to combat Trapinch. Vibrava's underdeveloped wings leave it quite vulnerable to counterattack. However, the maneuverability allows it to position itself where prey couldn't reach, and from there it lets out its ultrasonic attack. This combined with its acid allows it to keep many of the same prey as Trapinch. The sound attacks through armor, and the acid melts through it. Flygon's list of prey likely expands to anything present in the desert, especially with Crocodile assisting its hunts. Sandstorm's blinding prey is effective in all but likely a few cases, making it a potential apex predator, especially because only Howlucha and Garchomp would be able to attack it in the air. And that was the Trapinch line. They were much more ferocious predators than I expected. Let me know what you all think in the comments. Massive shout out to Malon Sale and Superbird, and a sentimental shout out to all my patrons who have been here for a year or more. You all have really kickstarted these videos' productions. Knowing there are people willing to support me on this has me smitten. Thank you all so much, really, and let me know what I can do to improve the Patreon. Thank you so much. Have a great day.